Hi and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about the Oeksound Soothe2 plugin. It's a unique plugin that is one of a kind. It's used by many engineers, but still I feel like it's underrated. If you've heard about the plugin but you don't know exactly what it does, or you are already interested in buying it, then this video is for you. In this video I will go over all the features and the workflow to show you its true power. So what exactly does Soothe2 do? The answer is very simple, but the way in which it does that is very complex. Soothe2 is a dynamic resonance suppressor. It identifies sharp frequencies and then filters them out. If this doesn't make sense, imagine a vocal. You hear terms like muddiness, boxiness, or sharpness. An engineer solves this by grabbing an EQ, making a bell curve, and sweeping the spectrum to find the offending frequencies and to then cut them out. This is exactly what Soothe2 does, but with just one click of a button instead of very manual work. But the use doesn't stop at vocals. The plugin is really designed to be put to the extremes. So in the field, it is used by recording engineers, sound designers, mixing engineers, mastering engineers. The application of this plugin are endless. If you're not already on the checkout page of the Oeksound website, I don't know, but let's go over all the controls and how to actually use it. Moving into the box, this is the plugin. There are roughly two sections in this plugin. On the right hand we have the visualizer, on the left hand we have all the controls. To understand the controls and how to dial them in, let's first take a look at the visualizer and understand the way in which we need to listen and approach this plugin. The plugin is a resonance frequency suppressor. So we are now looking at the suppression of frequencies happening. Yes, there is an EQ curve, but no, it's not to be read like a standard EQ curve. What we are controlling here in the EQ spectrum is where in the frequency spectrum the algorithm is going to attack the sharpness, the resonant frequencies. For example, in the background there is a voiceover running around the 4K, a bit less, 3 to 6K. We want to be sure that the algorithm picks up on the sibilant sounds and suppresses them. So that's why we raise the bell, the EQ curve, to make the algorithm more responsive to the S's or to the frequencies in this bell. If we do the opposite side, the algorithm becomes less sensitive. Taking a closer look at the EQ curves themselves, they are very akin to a regular EQ. So you can toggle it on off, there is a listen. You can also alt-click the bell and have a solo mode. Then you have the frequency control, it's just shift it left right. There's the sensitivity up down. There's the Q control, standard Q control. And then there's the balance. You can attack the left or the right side in a different amount than stereo. It might be good for a sharp hi-hat on the left or for some crazy sound design capabilities, because I said this plugin goes way beyond suppressing sibilant sounds in a vocal. Lastly, here there are a few band curves to choose from. To start off the control section, there are various sections within these sections. To start off, we have the algorithm choice, soft, hard, depth, sharpness. After that comes the stereo. Then we have the speed section, we have the quality section, the sidechain section, and then the output section. Let's go through them one by one. First off, the soft and the hard algorithm. These are two different algorithms that really approach the sound source in a profoundly different way. The manual suggests to start in soft mode and play around with the depth parameter. If that doesn't do it, only then go to the hard algorithm, because the hard algorithm really grabs the signal. And there can be all sorts of things like comb filtering and artifacts popping up due to the use of the hard filter. Then we have the biggest knob of the interface, the depth knob. If I play the sound signal again, reduce the depth knob, nothing happens. If I slightly increase this, and boom, suddenly you have a lot. So there's a lot of fine tuning to be done here. So what the depth knob does is it sets the limit of the notches happening. And you see here a figure 0.1 and you see multiple figures. So this tip applies to all of them. It says 16, but doesn't mean 16 decibels. It doesn't mean 2 decibels. It's just a guide on a scale how much you are suppressing. For example, the plugin can go up to notches of 60 decibels. That's practically annihilating that frequency, and that would be at 18. So it definitely doesn't say 18 decibel of reduction suppression happening. No, it's just an indication. Then the sharpness and selectivity controls. These are used in tandem. Sharpness just means the sharpness of the cuts. You see they are very refined here. And the selectivity makes the selection of the frequencies being targeted more or less specific. These 3 knobs in tandem are the core of the plugin. These are the 3 you need to be changing all the time depending on your input volume, on your sound source, and on the preset you are using. Moving on to the stereo section. So you have an option to go left, right, or mid-side. Just click on it once. What this does, it changes the balance option from dead center mono and mid-side. The stereo link determines the amount of linking between the left and the right, or the mid and the side going on. So if you put it all the way at 0 in a left-right configuration, it's practically dual mono. Moving on to the speed section, there's an attack and a release. It's actually kind of straightforward. The attack is how fast the algorithm responds to a resonance frequency, and the release is how fast it releases the EQ curve. Usually I find that tweaking the attack and release in a more broader and more natural sense doesn't do that much. But for example, if you go into the hard algorithm, you have quite a lot of sharpness and depth. You can really play around with the attack and the release to make it sound, to preserve the natural sound. Because if you release super fast, I mean, you can almost already see the artifacts happening. If we release it a bit slower, we get more of a dynamic EQ curve, like in Pro Q3. So this preserves a bit more of the natural sound. These are very important parameters if you go a bit more extreme with the plugin. Next up is the quality section. Make sure you have downloaded the latest version, because there have been quite some differences, quite some improvements here actually. So we have 4 fields to fill in. First, real-time and offline. Real-time is the quality in which you are listening back to the plugin. Offline is the settings the plugin uses when you are rendering, when you are bouncing your mix. I would advise for a decent computer to do a real-time oversample of 2 and a resolution of normal. Offline, do whatever you want. Check if it does actually make a big difference or not. My computer isn't the best anymore, so that's why it was on 1. This applies just to this one preset you are working on, and that's where this lock is for. If you now switch presets, it remains like the settings you have. Moving on to the sidechain. If you route a sidechain signal in your DAW, you can click this, and now it uses this sidechain signal as an input for suppressing the frequencies. I've seen a video, I will try to link it, I will try to find it back, where someone used it to sidechain the kick to the bass. Of course, also, if you have a very busy mix and you want the vocal to pop a little bit more, you can use this as a more targeted frequency-based sidechain. Lastly, the output section. Starting off with the mix, you can do a parallel mix. If you go extreme and it's just too extreme and you dial it back a little bit, you can have a more natural sound, preserve the source signal. The trim happens on the wet signal at the end of the signal chain. Then we have the delta and the bypass. These 2 are of life importance in using this plugin. Let me play the source signal again. If we click delta, we can hear what exactly it is reducing. If you are not sure what your preset or what the plugin is doing and you click on delta, you hear exactly the sound it is reducing. So if you have a very nice, open and clear sound like this, you definitely cut out too much. If you only hear like perfect, that's the way you want to dial it in. Next up is the bypass. Speaks for itself, but because this plugin is so subtle at times, make sure to go back and forth and bypass. Because the plugin can really make your sound thin, especially on the hard setting. You can create a digitally thin vocal. And if you don't bypass, you don't even realize that you're cutting so much S's, so much low end, that the vocal just is not preserved anymore at all. So make sure to use the bypass knob very, very often. Lastly, we have the ribbon on top where we can see the presets. You can browse. There are quite a lot of presets and they are all really good. My personal favorites, I'll throw them in, are the vocal warmer. Brilliant. I actually used this preset, tweaked a little bit the high and the low and the roll off for the voiceover I'm doing right now. Other than that, for not that well recorded vocals, Take the Edge Off is very good. I also do a lot of piano recordings. These are nice. They do require a bit of tweaking for the pianos I am using, but definitely a good starting point. Next, there are undo and redo buttons. Brilliant. There's an A/B comparison. You can check tutorials, manuals, shortcuts, blah blah blah. And lastly, you can have some settings. This concluded the overview of the plugin itself. I want to make a very last recommendation, and that is to check the manual. In my other videos, I usually complain about the quality of the manual. Oeksound Soothe2 has the prime example of a good manual. It starts with a workflow and goes into details of all the features there are, even going into some hidden features like input trim. That wraps up this video. I hope you found this video useful and you now have a better understanding of what resonance frequency reduction is. And I hope you now see why I feel the plugin is underrated and why it's so highly praised by many mixing engineers. If you want me to cover another plugin, something you want to see a deeper dive into, please let me know down in the comments and I will see you in the next video.